Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. You're tuned in to Ramadan Radio Wolves on Korea's Cuisine and Culture Show. We were talking earlier before the Zone break to Rafia Mariam Altaf. I want to get her name right. And she's a family law solicitor. And Fawzi, you asking her some questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering how you de-stressed, Mariam, from work.
So basically, like I said, I really, really love yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I've done for probably about 5-6 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a local leisure centre to where I live.
Mm-hmm.
I go to a class on a Thursday evening. It's like a 2-hour long class where
Wow.
we do various different types of yoga. So it's like hatha yoga, pranayama yoga. She does breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm.
So basically I'm quite advanced in that now, so I can do it at home as well. I don't always go to a class. If I'm feeling like a bit stressed, I'll just go home.
I think the classes are better to motivate you sometimes,
Yeah,
aren't they?
they are,
Especially when you
yeah.
come from a long day's work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the type of job you do and the type of clientele you have,
Yeah.
you need to be doing something, don't you?
Yeah,
You need to be
definitely.
de-stressing.
Yeah.
And I think most of us forget that. Even, I mean, I could hold up my hands high myself. I think what we do is we kind of get so involved in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if you've got the home and you've got children and you've got everything,
Yeah.
that you forget to think about yourself.
Yeah.
So it's really good that you kind of have that balance.
Yeah.
So you need that life-work balance, I
Yeah,
suppose.
and I'll go to the gym anyway. I mean, since lockdown, all of this has stopped. So it's whatever you can do at home. So
Yeah.
I think the gym helps.
Yeah.
Zumba classes, that kind of stuff. So I
Have
think
you-
it's important to take time out for yourself.
Definitely, yeah. I think Zainab and me can both agree that when you have children, it's difficult to continue doing your own routine like that.
Not just that.
I used to go to Pilates.
Oh,
And,
did you?
Yeah. And so because of the lockdown and the isolation, I've not been able to go.
Yeah.
And then at home, when I tried to do it, I had my 4-year-old jumping on me or the 6-year-old coming in screaming. And then I was like, this is not happening. Yeah. So I gave up.
So, with the lockdown and everything, how's that impacted your work then?
So we've basically all solicitors were sent to work from home. So I think since the 23rd of March, we've got laptops. So all our case management systems on there, so we can access our files. Basically, it's like an electronic copy of the client's paper file, so you can have all of that there. And court hearings have been taking place remotely.
Yeah.
So the court call you. So basically, it's like a conference call. So the judge is on the phone. The advocate for, like, say if there's mom and dad, two sides, both of us. And like for less complex cases, they're saying that clients don't need to be involved in the hearings because it's quite complicated trying to get all these people involved in a conference call.
Yeah.
So the advocates just run the cases for them. So we get instructions from our client, make sure we know fully what they want, and then basically run the case like that.
I think
we just
that's-
write a letter
yeah.
to the client or call the client and update them on what happened.
I think within the criminal justice system, we got a lot of court cases which have been adjourned.
Yeah, that's the problem as well.
And I'm just like worried that when all this opens up, we're just gonna
we're
have
be
like
so busy.
you're gonna have like
A backlog.
Yeah, and all of those cases that need to be seen and dealt
You're quite
with.
right, Zainab. With the less serious matters, they've adjourned them.
Yeah,
It's
and
only
there's
things
quite
that
a
are
lot.
pressing and that
Yeah.
are serious that they're just letting you do the hearings over the telephone.
Okay, so you told us that you need a good set of skills. You told us about your education background. What advice would you give somebody who wants to be a family law solicitor?
I'd say first of all, be prepared to do a lot of hard work because it doesn't just end with the studying. So I wouldn't say it's a marathon. It's more of I wouldn't say it's a sprint. It's more of a marathon. So even once you've qualified, you're still learning. I mean, I get a case and it might have new issues on there, so I'll have to look up the law. And, basically you're still learning even if you're qualified as a solicitor. So I think that's lifelong, really.
I think you find that with a lot of jobs, don't you, as
Yeah.
well? As a science teacher, if I was to go back in fully properly again,
Yeah.
I would have to read up again on the background of the
Yeah,
developments of
absolutely.
science,
Yeah.
So
Because, I used to think, once I finish the training contract, I'll know everything, but you'll soon know that's not the case.
I mean, we're learning every day anyway. And how do you think that impacts our youngsters? Do you think they've, compared to 10, 15 years ago, do you think they've become a little bit lazy in terms of wanting to pursue a particular career, but they don't want to do it because they feel that there's too much hard work involved?
definitely I think it's impacted that.
Yeah.
Even like some people that have been on the show have said as well, they didn't want to have a job that involved bringing paperwork back home. But in essence, I think I kind of agree with them being a lady. I think it is hard being a teacher, bringing work back home when you have young children or even children, and then sitting down and planning and marking. And with lawyers as well, it's the same with you, isn't it? You have case papers to
Sometimes
go
we
through if
do.
you've got a court case the next day or the day
Absolutely,
after.
So
Yeah.
you have to literally bring the file home and read it.
Yeah.
But do you think technology's had an impact on how we do things, how we work? I mean, definitely with the lockdown, we're kind of working remotely.
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of like the paperwork, because at one point everybody wanted to go paperless, especially within my office anyway. Do
Yeah.
you think that's worked for you, or is it just more paper?
I think we are going towards paperless now. So since lockdown has started, at work they've said we're not going to have paper files anymore. So it's all going to be electronic on the system. And with court bundles, they can be prepared electronically as well. So the local authority are preparing electronic e-bundles, and the judge has the same copy, we have the same copy, and it's a lot easier.
And it makes
Saves
more
paper,
sense, doesn't
saves
it?
Time, yeah.
Well, talking of technology, there's a grammar school in Wolverhampton. The head teacher there recently introduced no papers as well. So she doesn't use exercise books for the students now. They use just their tablets.
Yeah, but isn't that de-skilling
Exactly.
individuals?
There was a big debate about that actually as
Yeah.
well, but she's still sticking to her guns.
Okay.
So they use tablets there now.
Yeah, because I feel if you're not skilled enough to write and then you're constantly using a tablet, it kind of, I mean,
Well,
there'll be a toy. It's a technology. I mean, it's a machine, isn't it? So sometimes it might stop working, and you have
Absolutely,
to
so it's
fill in a
not
form.
reliable,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
I think they'll have the basics, but she's saying that it's much easier now on tablets.
And not
And
just
it's easier
that.
to mark, so it's less work for teachers. So there was a lot of positives to it as well.
Yeah.
So that's what she's looking at more.
I
of the
think
pros.
schools in France were doing something similar, and what I find difficult with my children is that they say that they could read books online. I don't think you get the same feel for it. I think you need. For me, I don't know whether I'm
agree.
old school, but
Yeah,
I
you
think
have
I
to
like to flick
Yeah, I
flick
like
the
paper.
pages. Yeah.
So even
Yeah.
like when we're reading court bundles, I like a paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's much better than
I think-
reading off a screen.
And then just that, I think when you're constantly concentrating on a screen, your mind goes a bit funny. Your eyes go a bit funny, don't they?
Yeah.
And then you just kind of flick from one page to another, and
Yeah.
it sometimes doesn't start making sense.
Well, I've got my children books to read, to be honest. I brought The Secret Garden,
Yeah.
and she prefers her tablet, obviously, and she used to have books downloaded on there. But I've told her no now, so that she's actually used to the reading more on her tablet than she is in actual books.
Okay.
So how you prefer books than I do, because we've been raised like that. I think their generation will be raised reading books more so on their Kindles or their tablets or whatever
Yeah.
technology
I
they've
think
got.
it's like conditioning, isn't it? Social conditioning, the way we were brought up. So, I mean, in terms of doing certain jobs, do you think culture has a lot of impact on the way we choose things? Do you think your family or friends had a lot of influence in you choosing your career?
I
maybe?
know, like, typically people think, Asians, like doctors,
Is that-
lawyers, that kind of stuff, but with me, no.
Yeah.
It's not something that my family said, oh, we want you to study law, become a lawyer. It's more so when I did the A-levels.
Right.
Like I said, I did law and psychology, and after the first year I thought it's law that I want to take forward, not psychology.
Yeah, so did you find a bit of pressure maybe? Probably not from your immediate family, but
Yeah.
people saying, you know what, you've got to be successful and you've got to be a solicitor or you've got to be a doctor, and
Or
otherwise...
barristers more so with Asians, that's what they'd come to,
Yeah.
wouldn't they? Yeah.
So do you-
No, I didn't really, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could have chosen anything and my family would have been supportive.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. And do you think at the moment society's kind of moving away from that, saying having the typical
think
careers,
so. I
and people are
think so,
exploring
yeah.
more?
Definitely, but I think when you talk about typical careers as well, I think a lot of individuals actually want to pursue that career. So doctors and dentists and pharmacists, or they actually want to
And
pursue a
it's
career in
a lot
that.
of hard work, isn't it?
It
It's
is,
not just
yeah.
like easy.
But I think a lot of people find it rewarding as well, and they enjoy their job as well. But like I know a lot of teenagers right now who are Asians, but obviously because of the stigma and the taboo with it that Asians go for medicine. So when they'll say it to you, naturally we'll all associate it with parents are pushing you. But it's not, and they'll say no, I've actually wanted to do this as well. So some children are doing it because they want to, but a lot of them back in our days probably they were forced to do it.
I think what it is, compared to 20 years ago, things are very different and people are more lenient and more relaxed because they've got more information and they've lived in this country a bit
Definitely.
longer. And I think when it was our time back in the day,
Yeah.
people had just come from abroad, or, they've been here a few years, or they didn't know the full ins and outs of what's happening within society. They didn't know how to go about talking about different careers with their children, with the schools. I mean, parents are more involved now. I mean, I don't remember my parents going to every single parenting. They probably went to once in a while, but when they looked at my school report, they couldn't read and write. So then they would say, we'll make sure you get A's, make sure you get,
Yeah, that was their way of judging where you're at.
Yeah.
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 So I think with society now and, all this information, that's available to us, I think we're a bit more relaxed. It can be work both ways, can't it? It can be too much, or it can be quite relaxing. So do you feel, as parents, we're more relaxed now? Or?
I think we're definitely more relaxed. And obviously you want your child to go into a good career though. So whether it be arts or medicine or whatever they pursue to, choose to pursue, you'd want them to do well at it. And that's what I've told my children already. Whatever they wish to pursue, do it and just do your best.
And as individuals, we need to have a balance, I think. It's not just, everything's not just about the dunya. It has to be about deen as well. Yeah. So you have to have your, Islam and, work life.
Yeah, definitely.
Dunya and akhirah, kind of balanced. And sometimes I think we focus too much on the dunya rather than our spiritual selves. Yeah. So coming back to your work then, Rafia, so what would you describe your typical day of work?
Okay, so no 2 days at work are the same. It completely depends what you've got in your diary on that day. So on a day where I'm having just an office day, I'll go in. First of all, I'll check my emails to see what's in my inbox, what I need to deal with for the day. And also that my diary helps me keep organised, as well as like our admin support that we have at work. So you see what's coming up, what cases are in court and stuff, so you prepare, make arrangements for clients to come in. Sometimes we have statements that we have deadlines to complete their statements, lodge those with the courts, serve them on the other side, that kind of stuff. So on an office day, that's probably the kind of stuff that I'd be doing. On a day that I have a court hearing, it's completely different. So you go straight to the court. You obviously meet the client there, meet the other side solicitors. What we do is we do have discussions outside of the courtroom. So we discuss the case with the other side's solicitors outside the courtroom, see what issues we can basically agree on before we go before the judge. So it saves time when you're called into the courtroom. So then when you're called into the courtroom, obviously whoever's the applicant and the respondent, if you're the applicant, you're leading the case. So you introduce the case to the judge, let them know what the case is about, what matters you've managed to agree on outside of the courtroom, what matters are outstanding, and then basically run the case like that. Sounds
really interesting. And is there always, I don't know whether we see this in films and whether it's stereotyping solicitors, is there always at the back of your mind that you need to win or lose, you lose a case or you win a case, or does that matter?
I think it's more a case of win or lose. I think it's basically trying to get the best possible outcome for your client, because our primary duty is to safeguard our client's best interest. So that's our main objective and how we run all our cases. But again, I think if you're trying to say win or lose, it's again managing the client's expectations. You can't always...
It's not about winning, is it? It's trying to get the best outcome, like you said.
What you're able to do within the parameters of the law as well, what it allows, what the rules permit you to do.
Okay, thank you. A couple of weeks ago, we were looking at career tips for 2020. I was on the internet doing a bit of research, and let me just go back to that. I feel that's me too. And we looked at saying that if you wanted to pursue a particular career, you need to do your research, you need to remove distractions, you need to learn the fundamentals of the industry, like you mentioned, Rafia, if you want to go into law, tap into your networks, like you mentioned, Fawzia, and master your endurance. And there are a few more which we'll go into detail now. It's talking about protecting your time. What do you guys, think that means?
I think from a teenage perspective, when you're younger, you don't possibly adhere to your time limits. So you'll give yourself 10 minutes to complete a task and you end up making that be an hour. So I think when you're that age, you have to try and have time boundaries and stick to those time boundaries. And I think that's what it probably means by that as well. Yeah.
And I think, again, with the type of work we all do, you need to protect your time, because at the end of the day, if you don't have set deadlines and, set ways to do things, you're not going to do it. And I think that's what our listeners need to take into consideration as well when they pursue a career, saying that they need to make sure that they set themselves goals and deadlines and objectives, so they could, fulfill that. So you need to be, and if you're not that kind of person, that's not the kind of job for you. Okay, and the other thing you said on there is you will need to make sacrifices.
So talking from a teaching perspective, I remember when I was doing my training here, it was so intense. I had no social life whatsoever. My weekends, they were just totally gone out of the window as well. And my family life was gone as well.
Right.
I was just completely focused on my teaching career at the time, on my training here.
So everything has to have a balance, really,
It does,
doesn't
definitely. And I think that after the training year, so obviously similar to law as well, it's still busy, it's still a lot to do, but it's not as intense because you learn how to cope with the workload as well. Yeah, so...
And okay, thank you. Also, it says on there, you need to be able to reach out for help. Would you agree with that, Rafia?
Yeah, I mean, we have, so where I work, we have solicitors that are newly qualified, and we have senior solicitors as well. So if I get a case that I'm uncertain about, I always go and discuss it with a senior solicitor who may have seen those issues that are involved in that case before. So there's no like shame in going and doing that, and they're more than willing to, you know, point you in the right direction. So I think it's quite important not to suffer in silence, seek help. It helps you progress, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay. And what about, it says always ask questions. What do you, both of you, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's important to ask questions. If you're not going to ask, you won't learn.
No, precisely, yeah. So sometimes if, I don't know, with law, how it's probably different for you. For teaching, though, I might teach a different way to a different teacher. But what they say is as well, I used to always go back to my mentor and ask as well and find out, is that okay with what I've done? And she would say the end goal was that the students wanted to learn what the target of your lesson was, and they've got that. So that's absolutely fine. It might be a different path you've taken, as long as the student still understands it.
And I think, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of job you do. You need to be asking questions. If you're not asking questions, you're not learning.
Definitely.
And better, you know, they said it's better to look, you know, not so bright on one day rather than looking not so bright, you know, for the rest of your life. So it's really important that we ask questions. It doesn't matter what type of job we do. The next one on this top tips for careers 2020 is read. Would you guys agree with that? I think you would definitely, Rafia, with the amount of reading you do.
The more you read, the more you know.
Yeah.
Definitely as well, to be fair, because science develops so fast and technology is always developing. There's always something new being released, and it's good to have insight in that to teach your students about it as well, so they can learn from your lessons as well as just the basic knowledge anyway that's in the curriculum. Yeah,
and I think with reading is like you need to be reading the right stuff.
Yeah.
You could be bombarded with a lot of information, and especially with the internet and the availability of information, like we mentioned before. There's so much out there. You don't want to be bogged down by that either. So it's being selective in your reading as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So if it's a particular career you're pursuing, you need to be reading around that and not everything that's available on the internet about that career. So you need to be kind of selective, maybe.
Yeah, just the key points to that topic or that career that you're looking into.
And the next one is saying that practice. What does that mean, guys?
For example, okay, for laws, I'm assuming yours would be different again, but for me it was teaching a lesson to an empty room. So it was my mummy's living room that I used to stand in and pretend I had the class in front of me and practicing my lesson. So that's what I used to do. And when I have lesson observations as well, I do the same again because I'd have them coming in, so it helped me a lot. It benefited me.
And how did you find that when going to court?
I think that's what I was going to say. My personal experience is going to court. So I think the more...
It can be daunting, can it, initially?
It is. And like you can suffer from anxiety before a hearing starts and stuff. But I think the more you practice that, the more you go to court, the more you become... accustomed to that environment,
and I think with me,
more comfortable in that environment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes we'll have a breach or we need to have a oral hearing or something, or we need to go to court for something. And even though you've been doing the job for so many years, you still have that anxiety thinking, because I think at the back of our head, we don't want to get anything wrong. You want to be like quite sure, and you want to be able to back up the information that you're presenting. So it's really important that we practice and we read on, you know, the subject around us, and also
definitely. Sorry, Rafa, can I just ask, you were saying you wanted to go into court just to get a feel of it as well. Do they have free time for lawyers as trainees to go into the court and just get a feeling? Yes.
I remember when I was doing A levels, so some courts, family courts are private, so you can't, outside parties that are not involved in the case can't go into that courtroom. But with criminal courts, you can go and observe cases. So I did that when I was a student. I went in and just saw how they...
How did you find the criminal court?
It's quite interesting. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I do like crime.
Yeah.
But, I just decided to do family law.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. Okay, so the other thing on this list is talking about going shopping, making sure your wardrobe has a solid amount of interview staples. So do you think that's important?
Definitely. I think the way you present yourself, it impacts a lot about what people who are going to employ you think about you. As soon as you walk in that room, they're watching you. The way you sit, the way you talk, You know, so the way you dress as well.
I mean, they
is
say
very
within
important.
30 seconds, the person has made up their mind whether they're going to employ you or not. And I think, do you think that's correct? Or maybe you wouldn't, for me, if I've got to know somebody, I think my perception of them changes from the first time I meet them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Zainab. I don't think first impressions are always the last impression.
Then no, they're not. But I think that
Yeah.
you do get judged on it, though. I think.
Yeah, you do. But I think like once you're being interviewed, you're talking to the interviewer. I think during the course of that interview, you can sometimes change their mind. So although you might be a bit nervous when you initially walk in, or you made a mistake,
because
or whatever, but it can be recovered.
Because sometimes you do find
Yeah.
people who are well dressed and well presented, they may not have the knowledge.
Yeah.
They might not have the background, you know, the experience that they require for that job as well. Whereas somebody who's come in who's still dressed presentably but slightly different perhaps,
Yeah.
if they've got that experience and that knowledge, then, you know, they're more likely to give the job to them.
I think, definitely. I think that the dress sense does have an impact, because if you go in for an interview and you haven't made an effort, it does tell the person who's interviewing you that, you know, you're not really caring about this job, and you don't really need it. So it's important to dress up, but you also need to have the knowledge as well. So it needs to have a bit of balance and be able to answer the questions that are being put forward to you. I mean, we've all been to interviews where we've gone there and thought, you know what, this job isn't for me, and you just sit there for the sake of it and get interviewed. So, I mean, then you know for yourself as well whether you want that job or not. So don't be hesitant to go for like certain interviews that you might think you might not get, and you end up getting that job as well. Yeah. Okay. The next one is asking you, know your limits. It says, this decade will bring a surge of possibilities and career options. You can't learn and do it all. Would you agree with that? Know your limits within your career, maybe, or within, or you know, for example, you could be trying anything. Like, you know, you're doing one job one day and next day you're doing another job, and you need to know what your limits are. You need to know what you want really.
So, like teaching-wise speaking, my limit would be that if I don't think I could manage a department, I wouldn't go for a that position such as that. Yeah, I think you need to know your limits are definite. I think if you can't control the classroom and you haven't got that basic, you know, experience or attribute for yourself to become a classroom teacher in the first place, you shouldn't really go for management experience until you've got the grounding level first, because otherwise it'll be too stressful, and a lot of people end up having nervous breakdowns because of it. So do you would you agree with that?
It's very relevant to law as well. So sometimes we get cases that have very complex issues that we as solicitors decide to instruct counsel on them. So we get a barrister on the case to basically represent the client in court, just to make sure that someone who's got the adequate skills, legal knowledge, is like basically representing the client, because again that's what's in the best interests of the client.
Okay, that's good. And it's saying, the next one here is saying, share your experience with others. What does that mean?
I think reflecting on my, again, I keep going back to my career, sorry, but
like, you know, generally sharing, I mean, we got a lot of experience, not just within our job roles, within like everything that we do, and sharing experience with others maybe kind of helps others to decide what they want to go into. So
I'll agree with you on that, Zena, for definite. I think it does help.
What do you think, Manfred? Do you think?
I do. I think right from starting A levels. So if you share your experience of how you found college, the studying, how you found your experience studying at university, how you managed your time at university, etc. If you share that experience with the youngsters in your family.
Yeah, and not just our listeners today.
That's it, yeah.
I mean, our show is all about careers.
As well.
That's
so
it.
what mistakes you made when you're at university, like time management, stuff like that. So just to like steer them in the right direction.
Yeah, we can only hope that. Though, don't they? You know, with the teenagers nowadays, it's in through one year and out the other.
Great. And it's also talking about your CV, saying that make sure it's updated and edited. So what do you think CVs have a big impact on the way we, are selected for interviews maybe? Or do you think sometimes people elaborate a lot on the CV, and when it comes across to interview, they're nothing like that?
I think it's important to have a realistic CV. So I think a shorter CV, maybe 2 pages, is more effective than a long-winded CV.
It needs to be to the point. You know?
Yeah, be to the point. And obviously whatever the employer wants to ask you, they'll question you during the interview, so you can fill in the gaps or anything that's missing in an interview. And it's also saying that update your digital presence. For example, put in information about, everybody's on Twitter these days, aren't they? Everybody's on Facebook.
So it's really important what you put on there, because if employers do look online to see what's online about you. So do you guys agree with that? Because people put in elaborate information about themselves online, and then they try to present themselves in a different way in an interview. So do you think that could have a positive or maybe a negative impact?
In some cases, I think it could be positive, and the opposite, it can be negative. I read actually an article about a lady who applied for a post, and her possible bosses, they looked into her Facebook account, and based on the Facebook account, they didn't even invite her for an interview, sorry.
Right. Yeah. So it's really important what you put on your CV then,
Mm.
and what you put yourself online,
On Facebook,
really.
yeah.
Okay, brilliant. And it also saying that stay confident. Do you think it's really important to have confidence in what you do? Especially when you go to court, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. You have to have the confidence. You have to believe in yourself that you can do it.
If you don't believe in yourself, I think nobody will believe in you then either as
Yeah.
well. If you don't come across confident, they'll probably start doubting what you're saying.
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think as individuals, our confidence levels go up and down anyway.
Mm.
Sometimes you feel confident in the day, at the beginning of the day, and at the end of the day you don't. So, you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware of your own trigger points and pressure points,
That's
maybe.
it. I think especially when it's interviews as well, for first-time interviewees or younger teenagers who are going for interviews, they will be nervous and they will be a little, unconfident. But that's still experience for you, and they're still learning. And hopefully by attending more interviews, you become more confident as well.
And I think it's not just like youngsters and people starting out. I think it's any time you have a different job and you don't know much about it, you do feel a bit apprehensive, and your confidence does play a big role. So it's important to do your research and everything else like it's mentioned on this list. And also it's saying that don't get discouraged. What do you think of that, Fawzia?
I think it's important not to get discouraged, actually. But I think a number of factors play on people's minds as well when they do get discouraged about a certain career or about a certain choice in their lives. So it depends on the situation.
So don't give up, basically.
Yeah, I think looking back, because I was going to pursue a career in pharmacy.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Fawzia, and thank you, Rafi, for coming
Thank you.
to the show. We're running out of time now. We've got about 10 seconds left, so we'll be back next week with some more career advice. With
Mental health show.
Sorry, next week is mental health, and the week after is careers advice. So thank you for listening in.